Welcome back to Straight Facts on Tuesday. I'm joined by Dan Potts and LB. There he is, right on time. Gentlemen, how are you both? You good? You well?
Yeah, well, Mo.
Yeah.
Well, bro. Other than football, I'm good, man. To be fair.
Yeah, same. Should we just change this podcast into like a live podcast?
Yeah, just talk about our lives.
We'll talk about life.
Yeah.
We'll talk about cars. We'll talk about whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Cars.
cars.
All our teams are mudded.
All
Our
for
teams
different
are shite.
reasons, but
Yeah.
I'd still rather be where you two are, if I'm being honest. Do you know what I mean? It's my club's turned into fucking Oliver Twist. Do you know what I mean? But yes,
You know what's funny? Tell Gritty, my mate come round for coffee earlier. He literally just rocked up. I stuck Sky Sports News on, and Ruben Amorim was there. And I was making a cup of tea, and he went, "Oh, he looks so sad." And I was like, "What's that, mate?" And he's like, "This Man United manager, he looks so sad." Now he's a Liverpool fan, as it goes, and he's just laughing. He's just like, "This guy looks sad. He knows he's in trouble." And he just made me laugh, and it made me think of you. So there we go. Thinking of you, even though I wasn't talking to you, Tel. Do you know what I mean? There we go.
That's what I mean. No, listen, I am and I'm not in a bad place with Man United. I feel like I'm one of the more realistic ones in the sense of I've known how much of an issue, I know how much of a financial hole. I understood maybe not the nitty-gritty details because, of course, I'm not behind the scenes. But I knew that fixing the club was never going to be this kind of linear process of every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, we just get better and better and better, and there's continual growth. We are a broken, bloated, toxic organization that needs fixing, and even that process of fixing us, it's sort of adding layers of toxicity. The media, I mean, we are putting journalist children through college, bruv. At the moment, it's unbelievable. And what do you guys make of all the news around the redundancies? No longer are sort of everyday working staff going to be fully fed at the club, so they're not going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner provided like the players get. It's very much going to be snacks, fruit, sandwiches, bread, and sort of soup. In another cost-saving measure by the football club, I think so far, forgetting player salaries, which is saving about 30 million a year with what they've reduced in the last 12 months, there's around 40 to 50 million pound a year of savings that have been made through these measures. A lot of United fans angry, asking for us to do it a different way. The media attacking United every single which way. What do you guys make of these cutbacks by Manchester United and the fact that they're no longer going to provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner to everyday members of staff?
Look, I'm not going to lie. It doesn't really bother me as an Arsenal fan with what they get for their lunch, breakfast, and dinner, if I'm honest with you, right? But I think what it does is it means that if there is a situation where a football club has to then look at that as their club finances, then they're in a little bit of trouble, I think. And it just kind of epitomises where Manchester United have gone to and from in the last decade or so, really, since Sir Alex Ferguson's walked out. I don't think it bothers me too much, if I'm honest. I mean, let's be real. If you're going to start to get to the nitty gritty of it, then I mean, there's more to talk about than that, right? And I've got to be honest with you, boys. When it comes to finances, I ain't your man, right? I'm not your man when it comes to football finances. I try and keep out of it all because, if I'm honest with you, I feel like I know quite a lot about football, but I know pretty much naff all about numbers, which is why I kind of keep out of it. Go, oh, okay, yeah, sounds good. I try and learn at least some from it. And if that is the stage where Manchester United are at, and that's how they believe they have to take their steps into keeping their club going, then that's the way they've got to do it, I suppose, is the way I would answer that question. There is definitely going to be the standards of the club that people are going to look at and go, oh my God, they're the biggest club in England. How dare they do this? How dare they treat staff like this? It is a bit of a mess, Terry, I can't lie. Your football club is. I think you've been quite clear about that. And they're going to have to start again. And if that is how they now look at doing it for the next coming foreseeable future, then that's the way it will be. But I think the fan base that are getting in uproar about this probably need to look at what's happening on the pitch more than worried about what people are actually having for their breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That's just my opinion. But I don't know what LB thinks, man.
No, I think it's pretty mad. You know what I mean? The club is in such a mess that, like you said, it highlights that they clearly do have serious financial problems. Yeah, I mean, and that they maybe are getting close. That's what obviously Jim Ratcliffe has said, that they are close to the PSR limits, and you don't do something like this unless you're close to the PSR limits. Now, do you have a right when you go to work to get fed breakfast, lunch, tea, whatever? I don't know what it is exactly. I mean, I don't know. Is it part of your contract? Is it part of the if it's part of the contract, then yeah, then obviously they shouldn't have done it, or they're going to have to compensate them with money, which kind of defeats the object. So I don't know, man. Like,
just on that point, it's not part of any. There's no suggestion or that it's part of a contract. It was just sort of like the club is spending around £4,000 to £5,000 a day feeding its staff, and they're essentially saying, whilst we're making losses, which we've done for the last 5 years, this is an area that we're just and they're not feeding them. They're providing free food, soup, sandwiches still, which is more than I would say 90% of companies.
Okay, so at the end of the day, it's a benefit that the staff had that wasn't part of the contract that they're now taking away. That happens in everyday life in every sort of businesses. It used to happen at I used to work at insurance company. It used to happen there, yeah, back in the day, right? So I think that where it looks bad, because I actually think in principle there's nothing wrong with it, right? But there's added context. Where it looks bad is that you've got these footballers on 200, 300 grand a week, and you know you've got Amad Diallo, who's played proper football for a year. He's now on 100 grand a week, and these people that are probably on 20 grand, 30 grand. Obviously, there's going to be a couple of them on more than that. You're taking the porridge off them in the morning. Doesn't look particularly good from that point of view. But when all's said and done, if it's not part of the contract, then it is what it is. You know what I mean? So I just think that it's masking the overall situation, which is your club is just an absolute mess. And I know we've spoken about this before. You spoke about it then just at the beginning, and we spoke about it on prior shows, but it's just embarrassing. I mean, every day I go on Twitter, yeah, there's something. I promise you, there's something else about Man United. I'm sure Potsy sees it. I'm sure you see it. I'm sure the chat see it. Yeah, I'm seeing that the owner walked into the woman's captain, didn't have a clue who she was. Now they're cutting breakfast and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like every day I go on, there's something new that's going on with your football club, and it's just like, I mean, it's great for content creators. There's so much to talk about. It's great for me because I get to have a laugh at United every single day. But it's just like, when is it going to end? When is your football club that used to be an elite level football club and you know the best club in this country on and off the pitch? When is it going to get back to even half of the standards that it had 20 years ago? Because you're a million miles away from it.
Mate, do you think? Sorry, just quickly. Do you feel like that? Because I know that you get a lot of it on Twitter and stuff as well, and social media. But do you feel like you're being reminded where you are in the table every day? Because I know that I would be I mean, listen, if this was Arsenal, my God, it would be a horrible. I mean, it's bad enough as it is, and we're second, right? We're getting laughed at. Imagine if we were down in the doldrums like yourself. I kind of see, look, people are definitely laughing at it, but I don't know if you're getting away with it more, not just as in you, I mean, like Man United fans are getting away with the position that you actually are in. Or if you believe, like, no, trust me, Potts, we really are. We're getting absolutely hammered. How do you see it? Like, are you getting a lot of abuse at the moment or what? Because that's
a great point, actually. I think the financial situation is probably, and, you know, the staff getting fed soup now. And I mean, free fruit and veg and soup is maybe taken away from the attention of the first team. And you could argue whether that's a good or a bad thing. And I think everyone will look at it differently. I'm certainly very, very aware about where we sit and the problems at the football club. And yeah, we get a lot of stick for it. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say abuse. I wouldn't say I get much abuse. I've got trolls in the comment section that will abuse, but I could save a kid from a burning house and they would give me abuse for it. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, that's trolls for you. So I'm not overly bothered about what they say. I think for me, I'm a little just a bit more balanced about this than some of the United fans that are angry, in the sense of I can't think of a better solution than what they're doing. And I pause when I say that for people to clip it up. Because people will say, well, we should have done a full sale only. Yes, but nobody bid the asking price of the football club. 1 second. Can you close the door behind you? My kids just got back from school, so they're all coming in with the dog, and I'm like, I'm in full flow here. Thank you. So, for instance, the Qataris, they never bid the asking price. And the bid they did make, yes, it included paying off the debt, but it included it within its bid, which meant that would have been £600-700 million. Sorry, nearly £1 billion of their £5 billion bid, which was £1 billion or £2 billion below the asking price, wouldn't have even gone to the Glazers. And the reason they wanted to do it that way is that way they would take over the club debt-free, which would resolve PSR issues. Right now, Sir Jim can't pay the debt off with his own money because the Glazers will not allow him to pay the debt off with it and gain a higher percentage of the club, because it would again mean that they are losing percentages and percentages and percentages of their ownership, but they wouldn't be gaining any money because it would be going to the banks they owe the money to as opposed to their own back pocket. So they're never going to sanction that happening as an example. And even if they did, all of it is offset against PSR. And we know we've got problems with that. So what I'm not hearing from any Man United fan, even any of the journalists that are attacking us, the pundits that are attacking us, the financial experts that are attacking us, I'm not hearing any solutions that are feasible, realistic, or that anybody is willing to do. So for instance, if there is a billionaire out there who is willing to pay $7.5 billion, which is the asking price, and pay the debt off in one lump sum to buy us, I'm not going to say no to it. I'm not going to say no. But that person, right now, that person does not exist. I also don't think the Glazers are going to be forced into selling by fans protesting. Protests are great, but whilst fans still give the club their money, the Glazers are going nowhere. So again, unless everybody's willing to boycott their money and make them hemorrhage another 50 to 100 million, which, by the way, before they leave, could lead to more people being made redundant, which we all are against, I don't see a tangible solution other than making cutbacks, slowly paying the debt down, which means less interest each year, because we've still got to build a new team. We've still got to spend on the first. And I keep hearing a lot of, well, let's sell first-team players and let's reduce the wage bill. But that's already happened. We're already starting to reduce the wage bill, but that's been criticized because people go, well, we're not a serious team. We've got to try and win. So the money has to go to the first team to get us back to winning. How else do we raise money when we're losing money every year? And so I'm in this position where I don't like what they're having to do, but I'm more focused on this. And this is where I'm annoyed with the media, is where has this attention been? As you both have said, every day you go online, you see stories about this stuff, right? Did you see this level of coverage for the last 20 years over the Glazers buying us with debt, riddling us with debt, stealing billions of pounds out the club, and wasting hundreds of millions every year on terrible projects? There was not this coverage. So what we're now doing is we're focusing on the people trying to find a solution. So whether you think it's a good or bad solution, let's park that. We're focusing on people trying to fix it versus the people that made it actually happen in the first place. It was a bit like when the country went to shit in 2008 and you've got the new government came in and trying to fix it, and the old government again, you're shit at this. In fact, it's happening now. The Conservatives run this country into the ground for 15 years. Labour are trying to fix it. I don't agree with everything they're doing. Conservatives are sitting again, you're doing a shit job. With what you left. They actually left a fucking note, those bastards, to tell Labour when they got in, by the way, there's no money left. Ha, ha, ha. Do you get where I'm coming from? That's a very emotive and serious level. But this is what the media is doing. They're focusing on it trying to be fixed after ignoring the problem for 20 years. They are trying to take the moral high ground, the media, and there ain't fucking any. There's no moral high ground they can take because they have allowed it. And even when it comes to fans are like digging at us and taking, and this ain't about whataboutism. This is about people just wanting to have a dig at Man United. You're an institute that is important to this country, Terry. You should behave better. Why didn't none of you care about us when we were being run into the ground? You cannot care about us when someone gets made redundant. You cannot say, oh my God, a club like Man United should not only be giving soup to its staff, it should be giving more. And at the same time, for 20 years, whenever people like me, Saeed, Goldbridge, Howson, whenever we mentioned the Glazers, we were told, shut up moaning about the Glazers. They spend loads of money. They're great owners. You can go fuck yourselves, you sanctimonious pricks. That's what you can all do. Because that's my issue with this. I am not agreeing with everything Ineos are doing. But the moral posturing from people, the grandstanding, go suck your mum's big toe. That's my official message. Write it down and rubber stamp it. Go suck on that toe. I hope she's got verrucas and corns. Because for me... No, I mean it. It's just bullshit. People don't really care. They don't. They didn't care about how we got here. They're looking at how it's being resolved. So I'll say it to anybody. I don't want to see anybody get made redundant. But bring me a solution. Bring me a solution. The debt can't just be paid off. Owners just can't pump in their own money. The Glazers are not going to sell unless there is a billionaire willing to pay 6 or 7 billion plus another billion on top to pay the debt off. It's the only way they're selling outright. Show me who that person is. Show me where he is. And when people say, oh, we can force Force them. Get the Qataris back. The Qataris bid about $5.5 billion, which is not at the asking price. I think it's a very good bid. But whilst fans are willing to keep renewing their season tickets, buying the new kits, the Glazers will never go in. They lied to us all. So for me, that's where my anger. I hate that we're where we are in the league. I hate the fact we're in this situation financially. I don't like the measures that Ineos are taking. I'm not sitting here going, oh, it's good that we made people redundant. I'm so happy. As a Man United fan, I'm proud. And I heard someone today say, I don't know who said, oh, Liverpool would never let this happen to their club. Arsenal wouldn't let this happen. City wouldn't let it happen. Well, let's see what happens if they're £1 billion in debt. They might not have no fucking choice. The fact that the way the Glazers bought Man United is now illegal. You can't do it. That should tell everybody everything they need to know. None of your clubs could ever be put in this situation that we're in because it was done and the authorities went, yeah, we could never let this happen again. But yet suddenly everyone's sitting there, well, there must be a way out of it. Well, no, there isn't. There isn't a fucking way out of it. Mass austerity. It's the only way. Unless someone comes in and gives the Glazers £7 billion. I'm ready and waiting to know who that person is. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. It pisses me off.
It was a good rant. I mean, me and LB, I don't apologise. Me and LB quite enjoyed it. But what I will say, I will ask a question. Now that you are pretty much at rock bottom and financially it's a mess and the table does not lie, are we going to hear the words Manchester United are back again? And if so, what year is that going to be? Like, real talk. I saw the other day someone say, I think it could take more than 10 years. Now, I understand where they're going because things look so bad now, but football can change very, very quickly. And you're supposed to have brought these guys in to do that. You're supposed to have brought them in to turn you around, right?
Yeah.
Now, I didn't think it would be this bad. I've got to be honest. I never, ever had you anywhere near this position in the league. I might have had you in the top 8 and thought, not quite sure whereabouts United will finish, but I imagine it will be around that. I never had you there. Are those words going to come back? I remember when Rio said it, Man United are back, sign the thing when he had Ollie. When are you ever going to say that again? And how long is this going to take, Tell? Real talk, because it's a mess, bro.
I look at it this way. One of the reasons I'm not also going fully in is because I don't, where I can, and look, I'm a human being like everybody else, and I make mistakes. We all perform hypocrisy at some point. None of us can say, I've never done that. If Man United was sitting third right now, because the Amrim appointment had clicked straight away, but we were still making these redundancies. If we were sitting third, playing well, we could win this Europa. We really could win this FA Cup. Do I think 50, 60, 70% of the Man United fans angry at the austerity measured? Would they be as angry? My personal feeling is no. If we win the Premier League next year, a Man United fan's not going to go on the parade and go. I'm not going on the parade because of that fucking soup situation. I'm not doing it because they took the £50 a week bonus away from the stewards. I ain't going on that parade. So the reason I say that is it's like I never condemned anyone from the Middle East owning a football club. And I understand the rationale people have behind it. I don't agree with it, but I understand the rationale. But the reason I never went along with it is, well, one day somebody from the Middle East could own Man United. Am I going to walk away and not be a fan? No. And I feel that if you're someone that's against Middle East investment in the Premier League, but then you continue to watch the Premier League like I do, work within it in one way, shape, or form, that's just absolutely ridiculous hypocrisy. The Qatar World Cup was a prime example. Everyone condemned it, but give me my money to go and be a commentator there, please. I don't want to behave like that. And the reason why I'll say I'm not a fan of the redundancies, I'll say I don't like every action that's being taken. But if this ends up working and we end up becoming a better football team, let me be just honest. Am I going to celebrate wins? Yes. Am I going to celebrate trophies? Yes. Am I going to sing with the greatest team in the world? Yes. So therefore, going in now on how they're starting this process off and building it by reducing jobs and everything else, I just feel about the level of condemnation it's getting. I don't then see how you can celebrate at the other end if it works. That feels to me really hypocritical. So I'm not saying I'm celebrating redundancies. At the same time, I've heard people go, I don't recognize this club. This ain't the club I fell in love with. But if they start winning games, you'll fall in love with them again. So I just think be careful what you say, because I don't necessarily think everybody is going to see this through to fruition in terms of their anger at the club, because I think a lot of this is about the results. Chelsea fans are protesting. Would they be protesting if they were still in the title race? I don't think so. I don't personally think so. So I don't know when we'll be
Probably
back.
not.
I don't have an answer.
I think
Comment.
you're going 20 years without a title. I think you're going 20 years without a title. You've got what, 7 years left or something like that.
About 8 years. Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. Because here's the thing, right? I can't remember who I was listening to yesterday. I was listening to someone yesterday and they were saying that basically this squad obviously needs completely rebuilding. I think most people agree with that. Like, there's probably 3 or 4 players max that you'd keep, and even that might be a stretch. So you're talking a very big rebuild with a very big spend needed. However, when you've got your owner coming out saying stuff like, we are under pressure on PSR, hence why we're making all these cuts. Please let us know any ideas to grow the revenue, stuff like that. That doesn't give you confidence that you're going to be able to like hit the transfer market big time. For example, my club has got plenty of PSR spent 20 million in the summer. We've got the second highest player trading sales out of any football club in the world, only second to Benfica. So that's why I have confidence in my club being able to go out and spend 300 million in the summer, because we've not spent that money in the summer and we've made the sales. You don't have that, and therefore I think it's going to be at least a 4-year process to get your club back to the sort of even be anywhere near competing. And then you're down to 4 years left. And then you've got to hope and pray that the manager's correct. You might not have the right manager. Amorim might not be the right manager. Some of the signings might not work. And you've got to hope that City, Arsenal, Liverpool have all dropped off. So I'm going to put it out there. You know what I mean? There is a little bit of a gamble towards the back end of it. But I reckon 20 years. I reckon you're going to do 20 years.
It may go 20 years, mate. And for me, I don't want to sound like I have no standards because it will trigger certain people. But if we're in the title races and we're a good team, I'm satisfied because we have no God-given divine right to actually win them. For me, my biggest issue is we're not even in the conversation. We're not even in the races. You know, if in 3 years' time we start challenging, we came second, came third, 5 points off the top, but we picked up an FA Cup, we won a Europa League. If we're nearly winning the league but picking up other trophies, I don't think that's the end of the world. Because, as you say, you don't know how good and bad everybody else is at the same time. So you look at this City team that's coming to the end of its sort of dominance. The only reason Liverpool didn't win more leagues is because they were up against a superior outfit in that time period. As an example, doesn't make that Liverpool team bad. They were just up against a really good team. Liverpool now might be a side that don't accumulate as many points. Maybe don't have a bigger win percentage. Maybe they win more league titles in the next 5 years because the next City team isn't as good. So I think sometimes there is this element of, but you're the champions. So as long as we're up there competing, as long as we have an identity, I'm relatively relaxed because I feel that anyone that's good enough to compete for a league title is good enough to consistently win other trophies at the same time as a general rule. So listen, and we could go 20 years. I'm not sitting here thinking that's impossible. I've seen, the last time City won a trophy when they went 34 years. I bet the last time Newcastle won a trophy 60 years ago. I bet the last time Spurs won the league and Liverpool won the league in the 80s and the Invincible year. I bet all those fan bases thought it will never be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years until we win again. So I won't sit here arrogantly and say that there's no way that happens. A few comments here I want to go to. First one says, Terry, we were literally hours away from going into administration. Hush up. This is also another... Listen, I know you were, you nearly went out of business at Liverpool. However, you didn't have £1 billion of debt for an owner to take over. So you were nearly in administration. The takeover was a much cheaper deal than it is now because the football landscape has changed to what it was 12 or so years ago. And there wasn't even FFP and PSR when that situation happened and the new takeover happened. So again, if there was no PSR rules right now, Ineos could pump more money in, maintain a certain amount of staff at the club and invest in the transfer window. So you can't remove the context of the financial situation. Terry, sell the club to a footballing man who cares about the club. Mohammed, I agree. But who's the man and has he put the money up? Who is he? Has he put the money up? Is he willing to pay the asking price? Because if he isn't, the Glazers are going to say no. They're just going to say no. So again, what you're suggesting is what I want, but it isn't realistic because nobody's there offering it. It's like saying, do you know what? Arsenal, go out in the summer, buy Mbappe. It's not plausible. The media, are they attacking or is it opinions or facts? So there's a combination. The media, I think, are a little bit duplicitous because some United fans don't care about this, but I do. I actually think we were bloated and we overemployed people. I think there were lots of... If Man United managed to maintain their income, if not increase it in the next 2 to 3 years with half the workforce, why would my question is, well, why were they even employed in the first place if they're not needed? That for me is a question that has to be asked. At the same time, when it comes to giving away free food as a point, it's not about whataboutism. Arsenal don't do it and Chelsea don't do it, but it's about understanding the landscape. Is it that we were behaving better than other clubs, but we no longer can afford to, and we're now behaving like everybody else? Or are we the outlier that's doing something wrong to its staff? Especially if rival clubs are going, you're scumbags to your staff, and it turns out none of you were doing it anyway. So we were just the last to pull it away. I feel like journalists should be providing that entire picture. And I always go back to a stat they put out once about Paul Pogba walking. 24 minutes a game he walks for. And we all were like, that's terrible. And I remember sitting there thinking, well, hang on, how's that compared to everybody else in midfield in the Prem? We don't know whether it's good or bad because we have no perspective or no context or perspective. So I think what journalists should be doing is providing us, the readers or listeners, with not just with Man United's picture, but what the industry by and large looks like. That I think that gives us a better opportunity to either agree with it or condemn it, so we understand the industry a little bit more. And I think that's Dan, you said about understanding the finances. The problem is we only get half the education because none of the football experts are explaining that because of PSR, they can't just pay the debts off and then continue spending. But yet, Man United fans, would pay the debts off, you're billionaires. If it was being said on Sky Sports and TNT Sports and the BBC and all these articles, they can't do that, maybe people would be a bit more understanding. And
why can't they do that?
So the reason they can't pay the debt off is a number of reasons. One, the Glazers aren't willing to give up more of the ownership by the debt being paid down. They want the money in their back pocket. Secondly, if Ineos went, okay, we'll pay it off anyway. We'll pay £1 billion off, but we won't gain any more ownership, which would be crazy. I wouldn't expect anybody to pump £1 billion into a club and not own more of it. It's £1 billion. But if they were to pump their own money in, so there's no limit to what an owner can pump into their own club. So Newcastle United's owner tomorrow could inject £400 billion into the club, employ 10,000 members of staff, employ everyone in Newcastle, give them a job. But in terms of spending more money in the transfer window, all of that is offset on your profit and loss accounts because it's investment from the owner, which is maximum £90 million over any given 3-season period. So it's all offset. So you might make a profit of 400 billion because the owner's pumped it in, but all of that is taken away when it comes to the PSR assessment. So you can't just pump in whatever you want and spend it on this area of the club and then start spending more in the transfer window, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they minus that off. So, and I still want more information on that. But I've asked a number of these experts. I'm like, so how long does that last for? Is it for the term of the debt? Is it for a set period of time? Is it just a one-season situation? If it was just one season, then great, we'll pay it off. One season, we can't use it, but by the next year, we're fine. But nobody wants to have these conversations. And what I find concerning with the media is that, for me, is the more important conversation about what solutions can they put in rather than just criticizing what they're doing. I want to know what else they can do. That way, it's like when you watch the news. If you're watching a really emotive political situation, it's terrible what they decided to do. What I want to hear from the experts is what are the alternative options? And sometimes you sit there listening, or it might be question time, could be the news, it could be a big report, and you're like, hang on, I don't understand it because I'm not an expert on politics or war. But why are we not being provided with alternative options? And maybe as the public, we could say, well, let's do that one. That sounds a lot better, more humane. And for me, that's what we need more of, is the experts or the people that have access telling us what else can be done to educate us. And I think that would really help personally. This here from the Red and Blues. It says, sorry for being late, lads. Just got out of the late lunch at Carrington. Today's menu was some Jaffa cakes and hobnobs. It was lovely.
I hope you paid for him, lad. You know what I mean? They were coming with an invoice.
I hope you did pay for him. Well, he's a PSG fan, so I'm sure they're flush with loads of money. They're grand. The problem the problems we have come from commercial signings, overspending, sacking managers. We haven't been a football club in a while. Even towards the end of Fergie, we wasn't a football club. Listen, I understand that, and I hear a lot of people also say, well, hang on, you can't be making people redundant and then wasting money on Ashworth. And I get that. But there's also something in business that, again, they should be educating fans on this. Cost to income ratio. A department that's responsible for bringing in £500 million a year should be and will be afforded more losses and mistakes than a department that makes no money or actually costs the organization $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year. There's every organization, whether you're a small business in a high street or whether you're a conglomerate, every individual departments will have a cost to income ratio. So there's more leniency in that. So I understand people's point of view, but again, I just don't think the right conversations are being had. But I understand why, because the media job is to wind everybody up, isn't it? And throw the cat amongst that pigeon. But yeah, it's not a great look. I don't like the redundancies. I am on a moral standing against them. But again, I keep asking, and no one yet in the comments, I haven't seen any. No one's given me a suggestion of what else we can do. So at the same time as everyone's condemning it, nobody seems to have any idea of other than find a billionaire. Good, go find one. Go find one who's willing to pay £2.5 billion over the asking price. I don't know if they exist, because the Qataris, I wanted them, but they weren't willing to pay the asking price. There's a reason for that. Let us know in the comments section what you think and what you feel. Moving on from Man United's diabolical situation, Chelsea play tonight. They play Southampton. There can be no excuses in this game and at the weekend when they play Leicester. Surely this has to be a performance. This has to be 3 points. I'm not going to say clean sheets because anything can happen in football, but their current run is poor. The fan base seems to be at war with, I don't know if you guys have seen it online. It feels like they're absolutely at war with each other. Like CB and Don are like the sort of the figureheads of that, but it feels very, very toxic. What do you guys think is going wrong at Chelsea right now? And how are they going to get out of this rut they're in?
Well, we told you this, 7 months ago, didn't we, bro? Pulled a clip up from 7 months ago when we told you this, and the Chelsea fans didn't like it in the chat, said we was being negative and was all wrong because we said you had a crap goalkeeper, we said your striker wasn't good enough, and we just got told that we didn't know what we were talking about. Yeah, we said that Maresca was a risk. And don't get me wrong, I think Maresca's done an okay job, but obviously right now he's going through a little bit of a tough time. Yeah, listen, I think this is something like this was bound to happen at Chelsea Football Club. You know what I mean? When you spend £1.5 billion, guys, and don't have a solid goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez, who, oh my days, I wouldn't even want him to be my third choice goalkeeper at City. I'm actually being deadly serious there. Yeah, and then you replace him with Jorgensen, who some certain Chelsea fans have told us is actually decent, and then he goes and drops a clanger like that. And then you've got someone like Nicholas Jackson up front, who again has done okay. But I liken it to a little bit like Havertz at the end of last year, where he scores goals, but he ain't the guy that's going to take you forward to the next leap. And then you've got a manager who's completely inexperienced. And by the way, apparently did actually have a little bit of a dodgy end to the season last year with Leicester. Something like this was always bound to happen. If they don't get Champions League football, I think he needs to be sacked on the spot. I think the sporting directors all need to be sacked. I don't know the full situation there. Chelsea fans will know better than me. But if they're still there from the summer, they need to be fired. And I think the owner is just a complete and utter joke. So there you are. That's the problem. You've not got a good goalkeeper. You've not got a good striker. I think your defense needs work. Your manager's inexperienced. Your sporting directors don't have a clue, and your owner's a clown. So all that being said, though, I think they've actually done quite all right this year, given the fact that they're 7th. You know what I mean? But on a serious note, though, if they don't get Champions League, man, that is seriously poor. Seriously poor.
Yeah, and that's one of the players they need Potsy to step up to get this Champions League football is Palmer. He's kind of going through his first slump in his career. Why do you think he's off the boil at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question about Palmer. And people think I'm bitter when I say this because obviously I mentioned Foden as well. Let me get this straight. I think Palmer, Foden and Saka are ridiculously talented. I think the three of them are absolutely outstanding footballers. Yeah, if you look at the bad season that Palmer has apparently had this season, Foden certainly, in my opinion, has this season, and then you compare it to what Saka has done for the last 4 years, we all know, and I don't need to remind you, how much of a meltdown Arsenal fans were getting in about Saka being questioned. So now, rightly so, and this is where I will stick up for my fan base, even though some of them are completely deluded in sections. They're looking at now, I think people are looking at Saka and putting some respect on his name. because he's out at the moment and we're really struggling, right? So it proves that he was needed when we were when we were in kind of need of him. He steps up. And for the last 4 years, he has pretty much carried that team on his back. He hasn't been able to win anything for us because he's a young kid, of course, still. But then you look at what Foden and Palmer are doing, struggling around some of the players they've got around them at the moment. And you see and you think, wow, Saka's a talented kid, man. He is a talented boy. So the reason I was going to say Palmer, I think, has dropped is because the whole team have dropped. The reason that Foden hasn't had the best of seasons is because Manchester City haven't had the best of seasons, right? So when Arsenal haven't had the best of season and Saka's still putting out the work rate and the goals and assists that he's put out, and even when he doesn't play well, he scores and assists. I think people have now realised how unbelievable Saka is as a footballer. So that's the first thing I will say. On Chelsea and on Palmer, I think Cole Palmer's an unbelievable footballer. And it's funny how nobody is mentioning the fact that he could actually leave Chelsea in the summer, if there was an interested club, of course. Because if they don't get Champions League, Palmer might look at them and go, where are we going then as a football club?
Well, bro, Chelsea fans last night were telling me on Twitter that apparently there's a release clause in Palmer's contract that if they don't get Champions League, the release clause becomes active.
Wow.
And that was Chelsea fans telling me that, by the way, not me.
Wow.
I didn't even know, bro. They was telling me that.
I didn't know that. Well, there was me thinking that someone was going to shoot me down in the chat, and LB's just told me that is actually potentially something that could happen. Because real talk, if Palmer's looking at Chelsea's future, he might be happy at Chelsea now because he's playing first team football and all that. Mate, would he go back to Man City? Could you imagine? We've borrowed you. We'd lent you in for a couple of years. Come back now. That release clause is done. Could you imagine activating that?
I'd take him back. You know what I mean?
Real talk. Am I mad? Real talk. He could leave.
Well, no, you're not mad, because at the end of the day, you've got to have the same energy for Chelsea that people have had for Arsenal. Because for last year or so, we've said about Arsenal, if Arsenal don't win anything, Saliba could leave. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. And now obviously there's a few rumours flying around that he might go to Madrid. You've got to have the same rumours for the players at Chelsea. So you got to have the same rumours for the likes of Palmer and that. You know, Palmer is not going to be wanting to be playing Europa League football, is he, next year? He's going to want to be playing Champions League. Now, he might give it another year, but at some point, Palmer's going to go, this club is dead. Yeah, we ain't winning nothing. We're not even getting Champions League. We've got clowns running the football club. I'm going to leave. Now, that might not be this summer, right? And I don't think it will be this summer. But if they don't get Champions League next year, nah, he ain't staying for another season, mate. Yeah, he needs to be playing on the world stage, yeah? And I'm not talking Conference League. I'm talking the Premier Division, the Champions League. So that's where I want to be. But yeah, man, it's Chelsea are a mess, isn't it? They're just that ownership.
If I said to you, you've got this amount of money to build a football team, I think you might have said this actually, LB. The first two positions you go and pick are the two positions that there has been no Premier League winner that has had a bad one in. A goalkeeper and a striker. They are the two positions on a football pitch. If you look at the Premier League winners, even if you go to Leicester and Blackburn, they had Kasper Schmeichel and Tim Flowers, who people might laugh at in comparison to the Schmeichels of this world and the Petr Cechs, but they're still quality goalkeepers at the time, right? Strikers. There's not been a bad striker that's won the Premier League. Whether your name's Haaland, whether it's Dwight York and Cole, Thierry Henry, or whether it's, the likes of what we've seen recently of Liverpool and City in the last decade. They've all had top quality attackers and strikers. You absolutely have to have that. Chelsea have not got that. Chelsea, I'm a fan of Pedro Neto. He has stunk the place out since he's gone to Chelsea. I know he played quite well at the weekend, but he's stunk the place out. Player that I wanted at Arsenal. Think he's a quality player. He stunk the place out. You've got Madueke, not good enough. You've got Sancho. Man United fans were like crying. Now they're laughing because he's about as bad as he was at Man United, right? Up the top, they've got Nicholas Jackson and Mark Guy, or Gui, whatever the hell you say his name.
Where has this money been spent, man?
Honestly, bro, I like Palmer and Caicedo. Then I'm starting to struggle. And I go, I can respect Reece James, but he's injured. I think Gusto's a good player, potentially. Now I'm struggling because Levi Colwell is not going to be a John Terry, right? Enzo Fernandez plays one game and we all hear about it. Oh, he was good, wasn't he? Enzo Fernandez was good at the weekend. He plays one game good, and everyone they want to scream to the rooftops how good he was because they know he's been an absolutely horrendous signing for 105 million or whatever the hell it was. Right? Lavia's a good player, but he's never fit. I quite like Wes Fofana, if I'm honest, but never fit. Cucurella, I think overrated, if I'm honest. Good player, but not like wow. It doesn't wow me. There's a lot more left backs I buy over him. So where has this money gone, man? It's absolute waste of a money. And
It's actually wild, isn't it? I don't know where that money's gone. I said it. I think I might have said this on last week's show. I can't remember. I said it recently, but like, I genuinely believe that if you would have given me 1.5 million, I would have had Chelsea challenging for a title this season. Like, legit, I swear to God, I believe that. I believe that if you would have given me 1.5 million, I would have built a squad that could attack. And I would not have hired Maresca either. So I would have had you a better manager. I would have had you a better squad. I feel like anyone with half a brain and that's watched football for any legitimate like period of time, if you give them 1.5 billion, I almost feel like it's impossible to fail. Yet Chelsea have done exactly that. They've failed. And you look at the squad and you look at it and you go, where has the money gone? Where is 1.5 billion pound in what, like 3 years? Where's the money gone? It's absolutely ridiculous, mate. Do you know what I mean? It probably needs another half a billion pounds spending on it. Because let's be honest, yeah, elite level strikers are not cheap these days. You're talking 70 million there. Goalkeeper, 50, 60 mil. I think you need at least one centre back, maybe two. Yeah, you need probably another midfielder. Your wingers are now, all of a sudden now, apparently, Sancho's fallen off. So it's crazy, man. That club is just, and I completely understand why they're protesting, because the club's just a joke. It's an absolute joke, and the guys running the show have just embarrassed that whole football club. Remember, it wasn't too long ago since they beat us in the Champions League. What was it, 2021? Was it?
Yeah. Do you know what's really crazy? Do you know what's crazy about it? This summer for me is so interesting for Chelsea, because when they got into the sort of, everyone has a different interpretation of the title race, but when they were one win away from going top in the middle of December, which was only 2 and a bit months ago, I was looking at it and thinking, yeah, do you know what? Those young players are starting to click, become a bit more mature. They've got that midfield that's now cooking nicely. They're winning games. There were still problems. They needed a better striker. They needed a better goalkeeper, but you're like, hang on. There are a couple of players away here. And I remember us having conversations, and we spoke about Man United. We knew City would spend. We spoke about United, Arsenal, Chelsea, and who is the most likely to do something in the January window. And most of us, and I think even Chelsea fans who were very supportive of the Clear Lake project, felt that, okay, now they'll go out and spend a bit more money because they've already invested loads, but it will be on the Osimhens. It will be on, let's just use his name as an example, Costa to go in goal, to really give them a chance to win something this year and become a powerhouse in terms of challenging for a league title again. And their whole January was spent offloading players that they'd just bought for 50 odd million, like João Felix, and trying to sign Alejandro Garnacho, who I like as a player, but I don't think he's that needle mover. So this summer is so intriguing for me, because what this team needs is not 3 or 4 or 5 more players that are 18 to 22 years of age, great potential, but haven't done it yet. It needs Osimhen. It needs a Wirtz. It needs a Bruno G. And I'm using these names. It doesn't need to be these players. It needs a top goalkeeper. You spend 300, 400 million this summer, like Chelsea, like City are going to do. I think Arsenal might end up going up and spending 200 million plus as well. I think those clubs are going to go out and buy very established players. Or even if they're young, some young players are more established than others. Nico Williams is an example. The guy is won European, international tournaments as an example. I don't know if Chelsea. I think if they go out and buy more youngsters, I think they erode the support of up to about 85% of their fan base. And then I don't know where they go from there, because that cannot be the business model anymore. I get you built a foundation from that. You now need to add not even stars. That's probably the wrong word. Established players. And and there's a lot of Chelsea fans, and this doesn't go away, they are petrified that Palmer might be sold this summer for one reason or another. And if he is,
see you later, lads. You know what I mean? Mid-table soon. You'll be down there with United and Spurs next season, boys.
LB's loves this, man.
It's crazy, man.
The water's warm. Come on in, mate. The water's warm down here. Do you know what I mean?
This is the thing, yeah. When you buy young players, they don't. Everybody thinks that like this game, this football environment they're in is like FIFA. When you go on FIFA career mode, yeah, you buy a young player. They always go up. Yeah, they get better, always, yeah? Now, they might not all get to like 90 rated or 95 rated, but they all go up. Real life ain't like that.
Well, yeah, I
Real
don't know
life
about you.
ain't like that. Sometimes you'll buy a young
Yeah.
player, won't go, they won't get better.
When
Sometimes they'll
I used
stagnate.
to buy FM, right? I play FM a lot. I'd buy it, and the first thing I do is go on and search FM 24. Who are the Wonder Kids? Right?
Yeah.
And you get all their names.
Exactly,
And then what
bro.
you do, because you get their names, rather than letting that 16-year-old become 18, 19, costing you 50 million, you'd search them. First summer, I'd buy like all 30 of them. And it didn't matter if they sat on the bench and didn't play or not. Within 2 or 3 years, they're all brilliant on the game.
Exactly.
And it works. But that's because it's a computer game and the game needs you to win. Otherwise,
exactly. They're playing computer games, bro. They're signing players based off of data. They're signing players based off of a computer game. Yeah. That's not how real life works. If that's how real life worked, Fergie, he wouldn't have spent 30 million on Van Persie, would he? He would have gone and got a 19-year-old kid. Pep would just be buying all the 19-year-olds. Wenger, all the top elite level managers, Jose Mourinho, or they would all just buy 19 years old and they just say, listen, we're gonna ride it out for a year or two, because in 2 years, these are all going to be the best players, because that's what happens on FIFA. But guess what? That's not what happens in real life, man. And you've got to mix these younger talents with more experienced players. Yeah, get an experienced goalkeeper in there. Go and get. I said go and get Osimhen in the summer. And what was I met with? No, he's crap. No, his wages are too high. No. Well, I'll tell you now, yeah. If they had Osimhen this season,
they get top four.
They not only in the top four, they're probably up there still in that title race, bro, to be honest with you. He probably gives them another 10 points or something. Yeah. But some of the fan base has been conditioned to be worrying about.
They're starting to wake up a bit now, LB. I think some of their fans are starting to.
Nah, some of them won't wake up, bro, because they're glued to FIFA and they're glued to Football Manager and they don't understand real life football.
Do you know?
You've got to go out there and get the proper players.
LB, do you know? I think it is as well, and we all do this in one way, shape, or form in life. Chelsea have tried something very different and innovative, and I think some elements of it have been clever and good. They've bought a lot of very talented players very quickly. They've spread that cost over a long period. You think that's a smart way of spending more money in a kind of PSR-controlled world. However, you have to now go out and buy those established stars. You've almost got to not even yield on your principle. You just need established stars, as you've gone and put it, and you can do that. But I think some fans of Chelsea are addicted to this. Can you imagine if this young group all grow up together and win? And we've reinvented the wheel. We've created a new way of winning. I think some want to see it through. You get this with Arteta supporters. We gave a brand new manager that's never managed a job in the hardest league in the world, the most popular league in the world, at one of the biggest clubs who'd been failing for 15 years. If he ends up winning, that story is so unprecedented. It would be an unprecedented story when you kind of build it up from a Premier League point of view. I think some people want that story as well as wanting the trophy, and I think that's for a lot. And that's not exclusive to Chelsea or Arsenal. I think some people are in that category where it's the story's even better. You know, we had Ches come on our show a few weeks ago when they went second in the league, basically telling everybody, if you're not a Chelsea fan, don't talk about Chelsea. I've forgotten more about Chelsea than you'll ever know. I knew this ownership would get us to the top. I absolutely back it. You fast forward 2 months and it looks the complete reverse. And fair, but I think I think Chelsea fans like Ches, I know he wants to win, but I think there's also a part of him that really wants this project to work as well. And there comes a time where you've got to ask for an adaptation on that on that project. Doesn't mean you change your style of football or your philosophy. It's literally sign some players that are older. Like, keep everything else the same, but sign some older fucking players. I don't think they're not changing too much. But if they're not willing to change it, are they really looking to win the major trophies? No. That has to be a question. It has to be a question.
Bro, it's like what you said before, was right. You said they've got to change their principle. No. Your principle is to buy a squad and build a squad that can win. So they bought all these younger players, and that's got them here. Now they need to adapt it. So I don't really see it as like Chelsea need to completely change the strategy. It's the strategy that they've employed has got them to this position, and now they need to tweak it a little bit to finish the squad off.
Yes.
But the problem that people have got is that they spent 1.5 billion quid. They should already be here. the squad should be completed off of 1.5 billion. I mean, I'm not being funny. Arteta's got Arsenal competing off 750 million, and he gets the mick taken out of him. Don't he, Potsy? People always say, "Oh, he spent 750 million quid, and he ain't won. He's won one trophy. He's got him competing for Premier League 3 years on a bounce. Chelsea spent 1.5 billion. They're playing on Thursday, not even Thursday evening. They're playing on Thursday afternoons. I seen a one game. Yeah, it was like 3 p.m., bro. Nah, serious, man. I put BBC on. Yeah, Holmes under the hammer. Yeah, fucking Chelsea was on TNT Sports. I was like, what's going on here, mate? Yeah, and then the 7th in the league, 1.5 billion. Yeah, should have got them competing for the Premier League, and it's not. So yeah, but what more can you say? They need to spend more money.
Oh,
you throw more money at it, man. Oh, it's the fact, bro. The Chelsea fans don't want to hear it, but it's the truth, man. I've seen it one time. Yeah, it was 3 p.m. on a Thursday, man.
It was 3 p.m. on a Thursday. I couldn't watch Countdown. I had to stop. Like it was.
It's like your pick of daytime telly, mate.
We won't even be in that next year. And look, this. Do you know what? With Chelsea fans, there's a bit of fun in this for rivals, same as there is with everybody else. But from my perspective, I've said this before. I remember with the Wenger situation, I was saying very similar. I do care about everybody's clubs to a degree that they've all been created originally by working class communities. They're important to those communities and now to a global audience. I don't like to see them run badly. It doesn't mean I think Clear Lake have done a completely bad job in every facet of the football club, but I don't feel like Chelsea are far away from being a team that can compete every year. It just needs, I think you've said it perfectly, LB, a slight adaptation to their transfer policy, and they're there. They're right there. And forget what you've paid so far. Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Yeah, they've got to do something.
Just one question, yeah. I don't know this yet. No doubt the Chelsea fans will tell me that they're absolutely fine. But do they have the profit and sustainability capacity to go out and spend another 200-300 million quid? Because they've spent 1.5 billion, and obviously they've sold the women's team, they've sold the hotels, they've sold the car park. Is there anything else that they can sell to get around these PSR? Because you're probably talking. You're talking at least 200-300 million for me to make that team a title winning side.
Well, that's the other side of it. If they only drop 100 million this summer and it's on 3 young players, maybe without them admitting it, that answers the question. I haven't seen their trading accounts come out, but the fact that for the first time in over a decade, Arsenal's revenues have gone up to, on the last set of trading accounts, went up to over 700 million euros, almost 200 million more. We're talking about 150 million more than Chelsea. But they've been behind Chelsea for the last 20 years, and now they've overtaken them. Spurs have overtaken them. Man United have always been ahead of them. City are 300 to 400 million a year in revenue ahead of them. They've lowered their wage bill, which helps massively, but I don't, it's a really, really good question. Chelsea fans who might know more about their accounts, let us know. A few comments here. Half of the money spent was investment. So, yes, it is investment, Ronin, but that was obviously to flip players and make more money on them. So far, like, how much profit has been made? And you've got to maybe start making that profit. Like, it's got to come off. You're speaking as if this is the finished product about Chelsea.
No, we're not speaking. To be fair, we're not speaking about the finished product. It's definitely not the finished product, Ronin. That's for sure. Big up to you, bro. But with 1.5 billion spent, you'd like to think you're near enough there, and you ain't. That's the problem. What LB's saying is spot on. You need to go and spend another half of that to get anywhere near the title push. I mean, you can't even get into the Champions League. You know what I mean? At the moment, so it's mad. It really is. Look, you might end well. Might end well. You get top 4 and you win the Conference Cup. Maybe that's not horrendous. Well, it definitely isn't horrendous this season. But mate, ain't looking good at the moment.
Do you think they'll get 6 points over the next 2 games against Southampton and Leicester?
If they don't, it's embarrassing. I think they will. But if they don't, that is embarrassing, really, to not beat them two. My goodness. I mean, they are the 2 worst teams by quite some distance in the league. I would say. I think they'll win both.
Are they at home as well? I swear they're at home for both.
Yeah, they're at home in both of them as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, they can't be.
That'll be done. That'll be 6 points.
Yeah, it has to be. Obviously, Copenhagen, in between. But yeah, I totally agree. It needs to happen. This here says, but will not all the money Chelsea spend catch up with them if they don't qualify for the Champions League?
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Eventually it will. The reason Man United are in this mess is because we still owe over £300 million on all those failed Ed Woodward projects. Simple as that. So, and the only way it won't, Morton, is if the sort of 500 million that's been spent on young players are never going to play. If they start selling the 10 million guys for 20, the 20 million guys for 30, 35, 40, then they'll be okay because they're making profit and that there won't be any problems for them. But they've got to start making that profit. And I think they've made a profit on some, broken even on others, and some losses on some others so far. So it's for it to really work, they've got to make a considerable amount of profit. Like spending 500 million to end up selling everybody for a profit of 50 or 60 is actually it's almost pointless, really. It needs to be much bigger than that, much bigger. City next season, we're coming for vengeance. 7 players were told to make plans for themselves this summer. 300 million, then another 150.
Yeah, go on, bro. That's the attitude, man.
Yeah, no, City will do it. City are going to spend very, very big this summer. Arsenal, Potsy. Obviously, a very, very poor result against West Ham at the weekend. I saw you were there. But there was an interesting confrontation outside, everybody. Take a look.
Yes, we need no, we don't need a striker. We need a goal scorer. There's a difference between a striker and a goal scorer. We need a goal scorer.
What's the difference?
The difference is a striker will hold the ball up but not put the ball in the back of the net. A goal scorer will put the ball in the back of the net.
So what are you disagreeing with me about it? I don't understand.
Well, you're saying that we need to go out and buy a striker.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't need a striker. We need a goal scorer. We've got strikers. We haven't got a goal scorer.
So you're happy with our forward line?
No.
Right.
I haven't been happy with our forward line for 3 years.
Right.
I think you're saying the same thing as he's saying.
Yeah, I don't know
No.
what you're arguing with me about. I don't get it.
We haven't got a goal scorer.
Right. You keep saying that, but what have I said that you don't agree with then? I don't get
Right. You keep saying that we need a striker.
it. I'm not getting this wrong. I can't lie.
It was so
The
funny.
thing is, I mean, he literally, if he would have articulated it better and he would have come on and said, you're saying we need a striker. We need a striker that's better than Havertz and Jesus that can get us 20 goals a season. I could have had a conversation with him, but he weren't getting it. I didn't actually mention him previously in my fan camp. If you go and watch it, the need for a striker is absolutely striker, but he made out as if that's all I was talking about. He actually shouted out, why don't you go and F off and support Tottenham then? That was the first thing he said to me. And I could tell he was drunk. Robbie obviously didn't know he was drunk. So Robbie invited him in for a chat with me and realised afterwards, oh my God, what the hell did I do that for? Very quickly. But he was obviously had a few too many. What made me laugh actually was when he said, I was having an argument with someone in the pub. And I thought, wow, he was drinking in the pub. I never would have known. Look, fans like that are a massive issue. He doesn't like what I'm saying because I'm calling out the club. He's come on to have an argument with me and ended up agreeing with everything I've said, basically. So I don't quite understand what he was trying to do. He made himself look.
I was loving watching it because I was sitting there thinking, because obviously we do a lot of work together. I'm like, no, Potsy says striker, you say goal scorer, but Potsy wants a striker that's a goal scorer. You both absolutely agree with each other. And when I first saw it, I thought it was Matt Letitia from the side. I was like, oh,
hey, look, Matt Letitia, Simon Jordan, Curly from Coronation Street. There's been so many, man. Honestly, this guy looks like everyone. But yeah, and I tell you what, he weren't small either. I mean, Robbie's not small, by the way. I'm only 5'10", so I'm not. You know, you both met me, and no, I'm not short, but I'm not by no means tall. And Robbie's well over 6 foot. This guy was towering. He must be like 6'7". Yeah. So yeah, man, I've got to say, it was an interesting debate, to say the least. And when he said go and support Tottenham, I never understand that one, by the way. I'm moaning about not winning. If he said to me, go and support Man City, then I'd quite get it. Do you know what I mean? Or go and support Real Madrid. He's telling me to go and support Tottenham. I'm sounding like a Tottenham fan. Does anyone get that? Does anyone understand that? How dense that sounds?
Well,
like, you're moaning about not winning. Go and support Tottenham.
That's really funny, though. We've all watched All or Nothing. Look at the way Arteta talks to the players when you fail to win games. Why are they not telling him to go to Tottenham? He doesn't compute that your manager and your players get angry with themselves and each other when they don't win games, but fans can't. That I don't quite now. Lying is, I mean, I did say this week some of the Arsenal stuff. I've had Arsenal fans message. We did a show about it, making up weird stuff about Unai Emery, that he got you to the FA Cup semi-final and it was Arteta that only got you over the line. Genuinely messaging me saying, Terry, don't lie, that's what happened. So there is some warped shit going on in your fan base like I've never seen before. The rewriting history, but Arteta has said something today, and I want to get your opinion on this. Obviously, the West Ham game happened, poor performance. There's been reviewed to the cows have come home. I don't think we need to touch on that particularly again. But Arteta has said brace yourselves. He said, if somebody tells you at the start of the season that by this time you will have played 5 times with a red card, over half an hour in each of them, and you would have lost this amount of players, that's what's the bets? You're in the middle of the table at least, and you're out of the Champions League. But that's not the situation. So that tells you the resilience, the resourcefulness, and the ambition of the team, and every individual has that. Time has probably not. This has been one of. Time has probably been one of my proudest moments to work in that sense. The problem is when you are there, you want more and more. I'm not going to stop over my dead body, that we are going to stop thinking that way and putting everything we can to increase the possibility of us winning. So, I mean, what I'm reading in that is we probably should be mid-table with the amount of red cards we've had and the injuries that we haven't. We're not. We were second in the league. We're in the Champions League. That's one of my proudest achievements in the last 5 years due to that context. What do you make, Potsy, of Arteta saying this?
Arrogance of the man is quite astounding, if I'm honest with you. The arrogance of the man is absolutely unbelievable. This Arsenal side should not be mid-table. This Arsenal side should not be out of the Champions League in who it's come up against. Who it's come up against. Now, I could appreciate that it's not been easy for Arsenal at games. But the Premier League isn't easy. You don't just waltz up to it and win games of football. Now, I'll go back to this yet again, that red cards in those games did not lose us or drop us any of those points. And the reason I say that and I stand by it is because we were crap against Bournemouth with 11 men, and we were never beating them with 11. We were never beating Brighton with missed chances when we went down to 10 men at Declan Rice. We were never able to hold out against Manchester City. That's maybe the only one you could say, because Trossard kicked the ball away. Maybe we dropped points there because it was a last gasp equaliser from Stones, which probably kicked us in the gonads a bit. Other than that, I don't know what the guy's moaning about. Injuries. Whose fault's that, Mikel? Whose fault's that? With the injuries we've had, we're lucky we're not mid-table. Is this guy serious? He's the reason we've got half these injuries.
It's serious.
He's not only the reason that he's got these injuries. We did nothing in the January transfer window either on top of that.
Yeah, why didn't you buy anyone in January then, innit? Clown. You know what I mean? What's he talking about, bro?
And then LB says, over my dead body, are we out of this? Or why didn't he use that in January? Over my dead body, are we leaving this squad the way it is?
Why didn't you say that to you?
He
was 8 points clear in January. And say,
well, the pressure's off now, isn't it? The pressure's off now, bro.
Exactly, yeah. It's easy to talk. When the pressure's not on, yeah, it's easy to talk, bro. Yeah, when the pressure's on, yeah, bro, people don't speak in it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Arsenal have only got themselves to blame. Yeah, horrendous transfer window in the summer, horrendous transfer window in January. Hence, 0 trophies again for the Arsenal. 0 trophies again for the Arsenal. 20 years without a Premier League, 5 years without a trophy. And people want to sit there and say, oh, Arteta's the best thing since sliced bread. Mint, okay, cool. Yeah, but that club ain't serious, mate. That club ain't serious because what are they? Why did they not buy anyone in January? That's a disgrace, man. You need to be calling them owners out, bro. The sporting director, the manager, you all do. Whether you're pro Arteta, whether you're anti Arteta, yeah, you all need to start calling these guys out because to be in a title race for the 3rd year in a row and not sign a single player is not acceptable for a club like Arsenal. It's not acceptable, man. They need to be signing someone. Do you know what I mean? And people say, oh, talk about market opportunities. Kvaratskhelia. Mamouche. Yeah, well, they're 2 top players. So what, you could sign them, no?
Even, right, and I wouldn't want some of these players. Even West Ham got a striker in, bro. Yeah, Aston Villa got 3 attackers in fact. 3 of them which scored, I think, in the last 3 games. I think they've all scored now. Yeah. It is absolutely criminal. And I didn't want Rashford anywhere near Arsenal, but at least Villa went and got someone and tried to add to their squad. Yeah, Tottenham Hotspur in an absolute mess. They signed someone. Man United signed a wing-back that could actually try and do something for them going forward. And Arsenal are sitting there with one of the worst attacks in the league, by the way. Yeah, when there's only Southampton, Leicester, Man United, and maybe 1 or 2 more that you would question that don't have a better attack than Arsenal right now because everybody else absolutely does. West Ham have got a better attack than us at the weekend. Of course they have. Owen
Yeah,
and
I
Goodison
agree.
are better than what we've got.
Yeah,
So
facts.
we're
Yeah.
sitting there going for a title, yeah, wondering whether to play Trossard, Sterling, or Marino up front, yeah, to try and win us a title. And people are sticking up for this. Judges put on it today. He reacted to the press conference. You should see the abuse he's got from the Twitter. I've never, ever, ever seen a manager stuck up so much more by a fan base in my whole entire life.
I've never seen it before like this. So passionate, so intolerant to other people's views. And the guy's won one trophy since he's been there, and then has ripped the squad apart and built his own squad that haven't won anything. I find it absolutely. I'm not saying you don't have to be Arteta. You can be Arteta in 100%, but the intolerance to other people's views, who question the manager when he spent 750 million quid and he's going to go yet another season without winning a trophy, is weird. It's cult-like. It is cult-like. That is facts. It's cult-like. You know, they don't even
LB,
like
what we did,
having
this
a
same
debate.
fan base hounded out a manager that was here for 22 years that won us everything other than the Champions League, which you boys will remind me of. And for the last 5 years, he's won more than Mikel Arteta has done in his first 5 years. And those last 5 years was horrible around the Emirates, mate. Horrible. You wouldn't want to go near the place because it was banners out, there was marches, it was get this manager out. This manager's an old dinosaur. He's a disgrace. He doesn't deserve a statue. Blah blah blah. Get him out. Yet this manager, do not. They treat him like he's their baby nephew or their son or something. It's so bizarre. It is absolutely incredible. Now, look, I don't want to come across as someone who's not giving Arteta praise for the fact that he has put us challenging again, because that's facts. That's what he's done.
Yeah,
But
correct.
that's as far as he's now got. We now need to move him on, and the ownership needs to show some ambition. And because the ownership are going to do neither of those things, that's why it is on them. So we will get to May, and if he hasn't won a Champions League or a Premier League, which he's not going to do, he should be sacked. And if the owners are not going to sack him, and they're going to keep him, and they're going to continue to just dwindle along and get in this top four, I am not coming for Mikel Arteta's head. I'm coming for the ownership's head. And that's what will be in May. And the fans need to wake up and make that decision. Otherwise, they're going to sit there dwindling along going, one day this process will come to fruition and I'll show everybody that we're going to win. I mean, Igal, bless him, the other day was talking to Lawless about how we're going to dominate football in the next 6 years. I mean, what is going on here? What is happening?
Break that down.
Yeah. Trust me, I'll get the clip. I'm on with Igal later. I'm going to speak to him about it. He spoke to Lawless in a preview and said, in the next 5 to 6 years, Arsenal are going to dominate football and we're going to win everything. Where's that come from?
I'm gonna break down why I think he thinks that. Just off hearing that, I think he feels that Liverpool are going to lose Trent, Salah, and Van Dijk and not replace them, and that Pep's leaving, and Arsenal will still have Arteta. I think that's his rash. I think that's his rash.
So he's going to wait. But this
has
been the thing. Yeah, but this has been the thing for the last couple of years. We'll wait for Klopp to leave. We'll wait for Pep to leave. Oh, Klopp's left. We just have to wait for Pep to leave, and then Pep signs a new 2-year contract.
And then Slot wins anyway.
And then Slot comes in and wins anyway. You know what I mean? It's
a joke,
so,
bro, honestly.
It's almost as if they're so scared to sack the manager and get someone else in just in case they go backwards, that their only view of success is they just have to wait for everybody else to be crap. And this year, City are crap, but Liverpool aren't. And now they're just saying, oh, well, Liverpool will be crap in a few years when they all leave and Pep leaves, so then they'll be crap and then we'll be the best.
There's always an excuse. There's always an excuse, man.
It's crazy,
and
man.
The excuse was Slot's inherited a squad. So Slot's not won the league then this year, people. Klopp has. Klopp won the league. Slot doesn't get any praise whatsoever. It's Klopp's team. He's inherited the squad. It was easy to win. So Slot doesn't deserve any credit. What a load of crap that is. Yeah. What a load of absolute waffle.
No, I agree with that. Same as, it 100% is. I think the waiting game, I understand, and I'm only assuming that is why Gal said what he said.
No, it is. He explained exactly that, Tom. That is exactly.
I thought that would be the case. The problem with that train of thought is this. It doesn't matter whether you're winning the league or you're coming second. You're still in those title races. It's still exhausting. You may maintain a different type of hunger, but it's still exhausting. This team and this group has been together not the group's been together completely 5 years, but Arteta's been there 5 years. This will be next season. He goes into 5.5, 6th year. You're getting into a period where you're becoming a long-term appointment.
Yep.
Most managers get 6, 7, 8 years, 9 years in the history of football. 6, 7, 8, 9 years is a massive amount of time at a football club. There's a handful of outliers, Fergies and Wengers and Cloughys, who did 2, decades at football clubs. But most kind of get to 8, 9, 10 years and it's done. There's also a train of thought. And then this doesn't matter. Again, forget the original Arteta in, Arteta out debates. I think both sides have lost that debate, that argument. And I mean that in the sense of they've made loads of claims each about the manager. Got loads right, got loads wrong. I think it's done. There's been too much time's passed since the original debate to claim a victory over it because the world has changed. I think the conversation now is whether you think he was good enough in the beginning or not. It's can he keep the team motivated? Can he be the person to keep them up by the top and get them over the line? At some point, forget it's Arteta's name. Forget this is Arsenal. At some point, he has to change because history dictates it. History dictates that managers come to the end of their cycle at a football club, win, lose, or draw titles. Whether you win 5 out of 5 league titles that you're in or none, there comes a point where a change is good for everybody. So the reason I bring that up is, doesn't mean you won't win it next year, but the idea of we've just got to wait for Liverpool to fall apart and for City to not be as good. By the time that happens, Arteta might be too exhausted to be the manager of Arsenal because he's been there 8 years.
Exactly.
You can't pin your hopes on that.
The thing is as well, right? Arsenal, one of the biggest clubs in the world, right? Fan base is insane. I mean, you don't have that many Arsenal fan channels, and they'll all be very successful if you don't have a massive fan base, right? Yet they act like they're minnows, like that they're a Leicester. Like, it would be an unbelievable achievement. You're one of the biggest clubs in the world, yet you're talking about, we'll just wait for everybody else to be rubbish, and then we'll win it when everyone else is rubbish. Like, I just don't get this mentality. You can't go around and say you're this massive club, and at the same time not act like a club. I think, you know what I think it is for me, yeah? Because I'm not even an Arsenal fan, right? I just find this whole thing very amusing, and I like to play on it as well, right? But here's the thing for me, right? I think it'd be a lot easier to understand the views of the very pro Arteta people if they give us a cut-off date. But they never do. And when they do, they change it. I saw a clip of Vigal saying, this year, if we don't win nothing this year, yeah, and City don't win the league and somebody else does, he has to be sacked. There's a clip going around, yeah, and now he's saying, nah, keep him. This is the problem, I think, for those fan bases. They never give a cut-off date. They never say, this is the year. If you don't win anything this year, he's got to go. And when they do it, they always change their mind halfway through the season and blame the referees or blame this or blame that. They never do. It's just like an ongoing process. We'll do it next year.
But there's a comment here that says, took Sir Alex Ferguson 4 years to win his first.
Oh, what we doing here, man?
I hear you. It says, leave the man build. If he doesn't make it, the club will let him go. Grow up, man. This is the thing. I don't even mind the opinion if it's just keep him. He's going to get it right at some point. And once he wins one, I believe he's going to go on to win loads. At least that's your logic. What LB is talking about here, Gooners on the sofa, is Arsenal fans that say if he doesn't win a trophy this year, he's got to be sacked. And then completely change their mind and maybe do that 2-3 years running. You're sort of setting the standard of you believe he's built something. You want to keep him there until you guys regress, essentially. But I'm not overly against your stance because at least you're taking a stance and you're kind of sticking to it. But it's the up and the equally like the Arteta outers who once upon a time said if he gets into a title race, I'll be fully behind him. They moved the goalpost. A lot of the Arteta inners, they set a standard of no trophy by the end of the next season. He's gone. You get to the end of that season, the can's kicked down the road again. And it doesn't mean the club's going to do it. But at some point, at the very least, you've got to criticize him for not winning something. And I do think Arteta deserves criticism this year. I absolutely do think that there have been games where he was too pragmatic earlier on in the season, a little bit too risk averse. That led to points being dropped, which, again, then the red cards happened. A couple of them justified, some of them I don't think were. Absolutely, as an example. You've then had the injuries. Some of that, you could argue, is on the club and manager. No backup for Saka as an example. Kai Havertz, look, I think it's a freak accident. It's happened as an example. You know, Gabriel Jesus's again, it was an innocuous moment on a football pitch. These things happen. But then the club have an opportunity to go out in the January and buy. I think it's about having honest conversations, Gunnar's on the sofa, as opposed to just sack him, no matter what he does, good, bad, or indifferent, just sack him. I think there's a difference in that.
Someone put in the chat there, why do we have to give you a cut-off time? You don't have to give me a cut-off time, right? But then don't tell me you're a big football club if you're going to wait 10 years and spend all this money and just be happy with not winning anything. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You're either invested for the story, right? And it's like, oh yeah, look at this process, 6, 7, 8 years we waited and we finally won it. Yeah, brilliant, right? Or you say, we're a big club, we are accepting this, get out. You can't have it both ways, man. You can't just sit there for 10 years. It's 5 years into a process, bro.
And you know what's mad? When people say it took Klopp 5 years, it took Sir Alex Ferguson 5 years. Do you know what Klopp did? He did unbelievable things with Dortmund and Mainz. Do you know what Sir Alex Ferguson did? He did the unthinkable with Aberdeen, right? Before he took the jobs of those two clubs. Man United and Liverpool took the two biggest clubs in England. Arteta's walking in without it.
Is as well at Liverpool, like Carabal's had that in his early years on that.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I haven't got to that yet. Trust me. Yeah, I haven't got to that. His first year, he got him into the top 4, and then he started to win trophies straight away. Yeah, now, rightly so, Mikel Arteta deserved credit for winning the FA Cup. Okay, absolutely he did. But since then, he's spent that 4 years, who, by the way, is now the second longest serving manager in the Premier League. Yeah? No, he's not. He's the third, Thomas Frank, but he's because he had one season in the Championship with Brentford before him. So other than Pep, Mikel Arteta's had actually more days in charge than anybody other than Thomas Frank. And then the next one on the list is Marco Silva with Fulham, right? So Mikel Arteta, other than Pep, has been there the longest now. So he's had his 5 years. He's now the longest serving manager alongside Pep Guardiola in the Premier League. And we are going backwards. Now, some people are saying they want us to see us go backwards again before they believe that this guy is not right because of the adversity and because of the factors that have come in, mitigating factors that have been brought into the red cards and the referees and the injuries and all that. Cool. If you want Mikel Arteta to stay at Arsenal, I really don't care about that. That's fine. I don't really care who the manager is, right? For me, you've got to prove you're good enough. And I think he's proven now for long enough that he isn't good enough to get us across the line. He might be good enough to get us challenging. Definitely good enough to get us top 4. And this is where I leave it. The Cronkies are more than happy with that. Because the process was to get back into the Champions League. The process was not to win the Premier League or the Champions League. That was not the end goal for the Cronkies. It was for the fans. And I believe it is for the players and the manager. But for the Cronkies, it's to get into the top 4. And that's why he's on £15 million a year and getting a contract extension. And that's just facts.
There's a super chat that relates to that from Twisted Bubba, who says, are we witnessing Arteta's or the club's ceiling?
I think we're looking at the ownership's ceiling, which is we're here, we're done, we're finished.
And some of the fan base's ceiling.
Yeah, well, clearly,
So,
not all of us.
This might be some of the fan bases here. They're happy to be here. If
Bro,
they
look
ain't got
at that fan who come to me. Look at that fan who come and spoke to me. Success is not about winning trophies. Success is not about winning trophies.
And that's, but listen, if that's
It's for entertainment.
Yeah, but listen, I ain't got a problem with that. If that's what they want to say, no problem in it. But then that's their ceiling. This is their ceiling.
Hang on a minute, though. Hang on. See, this is what. Sorry, Abby. He said this is where it's so weird, right? Success isn't just about the trophy, because you could win an FA Cup and still want your manager sacked in the right context. But it isn't also just about the journey, because what's the journey towards? It's winning the trophies. It's a combination of all those things. And that's what I find so enthralling about these debates. You've got a group of Arsenal fans where nothing matters other than the trophy, which I think is crazy because you can't win those trophies without the other elements being there in the first place. City didn't become Centurions and treble winners and Four Peters without a journey to get there. It's impossible. They didn't go snap like that. However, people that are like, I love the journey, but it doesn't need to have an end destination. I don't get that either. I think both those opinions are a reductionist argument in that way. There has to be an end result, but you also, I don't think, can ignore all the elements and building blocks that go into making a successful team or athlete. I find both those conversations weird. To put it bluntly, they're weird conversations because they're actually both wrong. That you need both of those things, I feel, especially when you're Arsenal, Chelsea, United, City. I was going to say Tottenham, maybe not. Liverpool. There is, of course, the journey and the story is an important part. And I've heard City fans, when they've won big trophies, go, I can't believe we're here. We've done this. I remember being in League One. I remember this happening. I remember that happening. I remember when we lost this final, when we lost this game. And then when you win that trophy, it's like all those painful moments in Champions Leagues. I've heard the interviews. I've seen it. That is talking about... So any City fan go, no, it's not about the journey. Well, you're lying if you're saying those things at the same time. But the point, like where we are, Man United are right now, I hate where we are. But one day we'll win again. Again, history dictates that will happen at some point in the future. These bad moments often make the winning even more enjoyable in some respects. But that's because you want to get to that result. The idea of I just want to feel like we're in a good project, that's not enough. I don't get it. I really feel like that those groups have become so polarized. It's almost about their ideology winning out as opposed to the club being successful. It's kind of strange to me. Very, very strange. This here says, Arteta sexuals are the most abusive lots you will ever see. Always dishing it out, but engage in ridiculous pearl clutching when you give it back. I think there's a lot of abusive people online in every direction.
There is, yeah, either way.
In every direction, it's crazy. Slot will have had the same time with the midfield.
I don't know what that means.
I don't get what that means, my friend. Also, Dan, both those managers were making finals.
Facts.
Yes.
Winning trophies, making finals. Facts.
Yep. Any of you fraud would love Teta at your club. Stop capping.
Oh, wow.
Well,
wow.
Potsy's got him. Potsy's got him.
I've got him. What I like is, he's called himself Declan Beckenbauer Rice straight away, so that's mad. But any of you frauds would love Arteta at your team. Stop capping. I asked, and you people know what I do is on my channel. I have all sorts of fans on. Not one person has said they'd have Arteta at their club, and I speak to all 19 other clubs, by the way. Not one of them would have Mikel Arteta at their club, which is crazy. I don't know if you would tell.
See, again, I think that's disingenuous. I don't think he's a bad manager, but I do think now he should be judged on what he wins. So I compartmentalize these things. I think he did a very good job, along with Edu in your board, taking a broken club in mid-table that hadn't won a league title or been in a race for a long time. And over a 3-year period, they built a very good team that was challenging for the league, playing good football, and kind of did it against the odds because you guys, I remember the graphics of you guys being scrubbed out the top 6, etc., etc. You were Banter FC. I can compartmentalize that and go, that was a good achievement. I think that is an achievement within football. The same as if Ipswich stay up this year, for the context of that club, that is a good achievement. I believe in that. Some people don't, but that's my opinion. I can also now look at the last 2 seasons and say in those 2 seasons, Arteta has fouled to win major trophies with a team that I believe over the last few years has been in the top 2 in the Premier League 3 seasons running. If you're 2 of the best teams, if you're one of the top 2 teams in the Prem and you don't win any of the domestic trophies, that's a failure. But that failure doesn't undo previous things you've achieved. And I think that it's a lack of honesty in the conversations for me. So I wouldn't not take him at Man United. I think there's a very talented coach in there.
Great question.
Do you know what? I like again, we've got Amorim now. I'm bought into it. I'm sticking with him. However, if it was, I would have probably gone Arteta, because one thing I know Arteta can do is help a team that's in struggling situation and build them into a team that can get into title races. We're still yet to know whether Amorim can do that in the Premier League. So if it's just because where my club is, I wouldn't not take him. I don't think he's a bad manager. So I'm not someone that thinks he's absolute dross. I think that is a too extreme of an opinion.
At the end of the year if he doesn't win anything, so
yes and no. So I want to answer this honestly. If you can get a manager that gives you a high level of confidence is better and can get you over the line, then yes. If it's someone you're umming and ahhing whether or not they're better than him, or whether or not they're going to take you forward, then I would say no. So I think it depends. I think you're at a point where it depends on who you guys need a striker, but you need someone who's raising your level. If you're going to change Arteta, I think it has to be for a manager where there is a real sense of confidence that you're going to another level. For instance, when Ranieri, that was very close to winning Chelsea a league title, it was just the Invincibles that stopped him. When they went to Jose, it was considered by most a step up in terms of an individual. When
Yep.
City went from Pellegrini, who'd won them a league title, to Pep, you could see a clear improvement. So I think it would have to be for a manager where you go, we mean serious business here. So I don't think it's a case.
And that's why the owners are an issue,
just
because if
sacking
we
him.
did sack Arteta, they'd get Cesc Fabregas. That's what would happen with this ownership, mate. This ownership, they want the young manager, the progress manager. They won't go and get a young, proven manager like a Xabi Alonso or a Ruben Amorim. They will go and get Cesc Fabregas, because that is the guy that they can use as the shield, as the shush yes man, and that's what this ownership's about, which is why it's on them. And look, I give Arteta a lot of stick because I do believe that he does deserve some of it. I think he's been justified for how he's dumped us out of pretty much every single cup that he's ever tried to enter us in, other than the one that he won when he first won it. Other than that, I think he's done a good job getting us challenging, but I kind of seen us challenging for a long, long time. I need him to get across the line now. And if he doesn't, I don't think it is a bad, negative, toxic thing to say that we should be replacing him. I agree that it needs to be for a Simone
and that's where I think the conversation, it needs to be a sensible conversation, because look, the list here, Allegri. I don't think Allegri is a nothing's 100% guarantee, but I don't think he's a high enough percentile of a guarantee to get you over the line. I mean, he hasn't been, I would say, a manager at the elite level winning things now for what? How many years?
5 years, yeah.
You talk about Areola. Again, where's the pedigree of him getting a team over the line? What he's done at Bournemouth is amazing, but I don't think it's a big enough guarantee. Alonso, I think there's a very special. I think there's a special manager in there that went invincible with Bayer Leverkusen. I think that's someone. Again, then you mentioned Ancelotti. I don't think Ancelotti would choose Arsenal. I think he's going to retire at the end of the season. So it becomes a moot point. And this is why I think it's about, but
if you went to Ancelotti though, if he say he left Real Madrid right at the end of the year, because there has been rumours that he might leave at the end. Yeah. And then Arsenal went 20 million. Give us 2 years. You tell me to turn that down.
He might, again, if he would
40
say
million gross over 2 years, he'd definitely take that.
He might take it. But if he's interested, he's interested. So, if they can get him, then yes, Ancelotti.
The truth is, you can't have this conversation about what manager takes over, because Slot's come out of nowhere, and won the league with Liverpool and might win the Champions League and might win the Carabao Cup.
But I understand that, but I'm just talking from my perspective and giving my personal opinion. So again, I'm not in the boardroom doing the due diligence. If you're saying to me, would you, I mean, I'm not even an Arsenal fan, but would you sack Arteta? I can only give you my honest opinion. And the only time I would say yes to that is if I was confident. For instance, if Klopp didn't leave and you said to Liverpool fans at the end of last season, sack Klopp and go to Slot, or stick with Klopp, most would have said stick with Klopp because of what they know about him, and they would have felt it was too big of a risk. So I can only give an opinion based on how I feel about a particular manager.
Can I not flip that and say, is it not a risk keeping Arteta one more year if he doesn't win anything? When Saliba might look at it and go, you know what, we ain't winning anything, I'm leaving. Saka might think I'm leaving. Gabriel might go, I'm leaving.
You are spot on there, and I think that's where the conversation has to be honest. That's a really good point you raise. There is a chance that Arteta gets another year, and they do start to go backwards. The players say, we love him, but we've had enough of him. That happens in all walks of life, in business, sport, family, whatever it may be. There's a chance that happens. Equally, you can change him and bring in Alonso. You can go to Ancelotti. You can go to a manager you think is going to make you better, and they could just take you backwards because it's a bad match, as an example. And I always feel like that's the disingenuous nature of this conversation, is that the ones that want him out, there's almost no thought for, but what if we actually get worse if we did that? Equally, the ones that want to keep him, there's never any thought of, well, what if the next guy's better? It's very, I think both conversations are disingenuous because nobody wants to have a grown-up conversation about those two areas because everything's driven by ideology. So for me, and someone said it was a bad analogy about the Klopp thing, I don't personally think that it is. You were not forced into that situation, but Klopp left. You had to bring in a new manager. I'm totally aware that you could go for someone currently managing in Germany that none of us really know who could take Arsenal over the line. That is plausible. But you're asking me to make a decision. And I'm not going to say yes to something when I don't know who this person is coming in or know enough about them. That would be a stupid opinion to just take a kind of a risk in this way. At the same time, again, we're fans and we have conversations about this. I always feel the conversations are just too heavily sided in either direction. And I think that Arsenal fans need to try and create spaces where the conversations are fair, open, and honest. And we had a guy called Connor that phoned in at the end of last season, and he's the only gooner that I've personally come across who said, he goes, I want Arteta to go. He went, I love him for what he's built for us. I think he's a great guy, but I want to go on to somebody new. And someone on the panel said, well, what if it goes wrong? And he just said, I am completely open for it going wrong. I would rather, he said, I would rather risk it going wrong and we go backwards than just stay where we are. I'd like to take the risk. And I just thought, what a
great.
That's brave, man.
Exactly. But for me, it was the most honest Arsenal opinion I would say I've heard in the last 3 years from a gooner, where I find most of the inners and most of the outers, it's just, of course we'll go backwards if he leaves, or of course we'll go forward if he's sacked. And I just look at it and think, I think you're both being intellectually dishonest in that conversation. And Connor was the only guy who was like, yeah, but I'm willing to take that risk. And I thought, you can't argue. Yeah, I liked it. It was just honest. And I don't think the Arteta in and Arteta out debate is honest anymore. I think it's all about, I want to be right, as opposed to, let's just have an honest conversation as fans.
Let me ask you. I mean, I would ask you, Tel, but I don't suspect that Man United will be challenging for the title next year. I could be wrong. But LB, I'll ask you, because I think Manchester City will be challenging for the title next year. And I actually do think that Arsenal will be challenging again for the title next year, right? If I said to you, LB, we're keeping Arteta, we're going to have a rubbish summer again, but we're keeping Arteta. Or we're going to have a pretty rubbish summer again, unfortunately. You're not going to be scared by it, but we're bringing in Ancelotti. Would you then be more scared of Arsenal if we brought in Ancelotti?
What's that question? You know the answer to that question.
So why then, when I say, who do you want then? And I mention Ancelotti, am I getting told that he's washed because of what he did at Everton? That's what I cannot understand. And since Everton has gone, by the way, since he's left Everton, by the way, look at the state of them. Let's just bring, I know Moyes picking them up now, but look at how much in the mud they've been since he's left, right? So this is why I hate it when anybody says to me, who do you want then? Who are we going to get then? Who are we going to get? Well, Slot's just coming at Liverpool. Did anyone want him? Did anybody want Arne Slot? Did Liverpool fans go, please get me him? Please get me him. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of good managers out there. There's a lot of good managers out there. There's the tactics from these managers are going up, man. You look at what Thomas Frank's done at Brentford, Iriola's done at Bournemouth, the geezer at Brighton. Yeah, these guys are like getting these players to play at an extremely high level, you know, and people just go on like Arteta's the main guy. It's just not true at all.
You are right in that, and you could bring Ariola in, and he does get you over the line. Of course, that's plausible and holds water. I think when it comes to if we're just speaking specifically about Arsenal fans in the context of this conversation, I think a lot of people don't want to step outside their camp because there's safety in numbers. It's, you know what, I'm going to stick with saying only Arteta because there's a big group of us online. We're in a group chat. If I get into a debate with person X, they'll all back me. If I step out and start to side with them, maybe I'll lose my group. And I think people are really attached to their groups as well, as opposed, as you say, I think there's an honest conversation that needs to be had regarding that. In terms of, we're going to come back to the super chats in a minute. I just want to mention very quickly a big story today about Isak and that Liverpool may come in for him as a Mo Salah replacement in the summer. Is that, if Liverpool lose Salah, everybody's saying that's it. They can't win a league title again without him. Is someone like Isak the kind of person they've got to target if indeed they do lose Mohamed Salah?
Yeah,
right.
That would
I don't see it happening.
Well, it would soften the blow of losing a world-class talent of Salah because Isak's unbelievable. However, I mean, you're not going to replace Salah. You're just not going to. You know, he's the one that we've just been talking about all week about how he's now one of the Premier League GOATs and how he goes down as one of the greats and stuff like that. But Liverpool cannot keep Trent, keep Van Dijk, keep Salah and sign Isak. Surely they just can't afford to do all that, right? Because Salah's going to want unbelievable amounts of money a week, as are the other two. And then Isak on top of that, signing for 180 million euros, I'm seeing today. That is just a madness for them to be able to afford that or do that. And we know the FSG are not going to be able to slap all that money down. So I don't see it happening. However, it would be a very, very good signing for Liverpool. I think he might have one more year at Newcastle, whatever, and then make a decision. I think we spoke about this a couple of shows ago, and I think LB might have even said it, that you stay for a year and then you look at where is the best place to go. Is it at Arsenal or Liverpool, stay in the Prem, or another Premier League club at the time in a couple of years' time if they come into the mix? Or does he go to a Barcelona or somewhere like that? I don't think he's going to stay at Newcastle for a long time. But Newcastle could have a really good summer and a really good season next season. And I think that if they was to actually keep hold of what they've got, Newcastle, and add 4 or 5 players that they will be able to do now that they can spend, because they've had 4 windows where they pretty much haven't been allowed to because of PSR. I think Newcastle could have an unbelievable summer, if I'm honest. And if they do get the goalkeeper, the centre half, the midfielder, the winger and the striker that I think they're probably going to get, which is only 3 or 4 players, on top of an already very good 11 when you look at it 1 to 11, you start adding 4 or 5 players to it, they get Champions League football. I don't think Newcastle are going to sell Isak, and I actually don't think Isak will ask to leave. So I think it all depends on where Newcastle finish. Sorry, go on.
I just don't see why Isak would be in any rush to leave Newcastle this summer, right? He's what, 24, something like that, yeah? So he's got time on his side. He's got 3 years left on his contract, right? And as far as I'm aware, there's no release clause in there. I've not heard any people speak about a release clause. So it's going to be at least 150 million to get him out of the club, which realistically no one's going to be paying. So why force your way into an uncertain environment, which would be Liverpool Football Club next season? And it's going to be uncertain because Salah might leave, Trent might leave, Van Dijk might leave. Why go there? Why go to Arsenal, who've not won anything? Why go to United, who are in a mess? Why go to Chelsea, who are in a mess? You're not going to go City because we've got Haaland and Marmoush. Why would you leave? And I just think, for me, if I was him, I'd wait it out for at least another year, maybe 2, and then go Bayern or Barcelona. I think that's what I'd do if I was him. I don't see why I'd go somewhere.
Someone in the chat is saying, why don't you think Liverpool can afford him? I didn't say that. I didn't say Liverpool can't afford him. I said they might not be able to afford keeping the 3 players and Isak. They could afford Isak. I'm sure they can, right? I'm sure they don't know their financial position. But I'm sure I've never seen Liverpool go and lump 120, 130 million on a striker. But
I think if they lose all 3, in some respects, it might make it harder to get Isak because, as you say, the uncertainty where if they keep Van Dijk and they keep Mo Salah, and then they say, Isak, we want to sign you to replace Darwin Núñez, that's when I think you might have a lot more chance, because Isak might look at it and say, I'm turning 25. That's 2 or 3 years with the best team in the country at the moment. And again, can you imagine how many more points they'd have this? I mean, they've got almost not maximum points. I mean, imagine Isak in this team as well. It's ridiculous. But I do agree with you, LB. I don't see it happening. It's something that I know Newcastle fans hate their players being linked to big clubs. I say this to my cousin all the time, though. You're back in amongst the big boys now. All of us have our players linked to other clubs. Saliba's been linked to Real Madrid for the past 3 years. There's always talk about Haaland maybe going as an example. Madrid might come in for Rodri before the injury. Man United, when we're good, bad, or indifferent, our players are always linked to other clubs. It's what happens. So my message to Newcastle fans is, if you want to be amongst the big boys, which your owners do, and I know you do, just get used to this. 1, everybody being linked to your players, and 2, the bigger you get, the more successful you get, God, you come in for a lot of scrutiny. So just like when you're an average sized club, not a lot going on, mid-table, down near the bottom, you get it in the local press, but you don't get the national coverage in the same way. It's next level when you become an absolute powerhouse. So just strap yourselves in, Geordies. But yeah, I agree with you, LB. I don't see this one happening. They're going to price him out of a move. I think they're going to go big themselves, especially with what feels like the kind of the APT rules going. And if they do go, if this next court case goes the way of City and there's far more leniency in associated parties, they're bringing in a grass sponsor, a stadium sponsor, a corner flag sponsor from Saudi. All of them will be 30-40 million pounds a year each, and there'll suddenly be more money to spend.
Exactly.
Again,
that's what I'm saying. I think the best place for him, the best place for him in the Premier League right now is Newcastle. It's Newcastle. And if I was him, if I wanted to leave, I'd wait a year or 2 and wait for Lewandowski or Kane to dip off from Bayern or Barcelona and just go there. I just don't see why you go to Liverpool or Arsenal if you was Isak right now. I don't. Maybe in a year's time, but not this summer. And you definitely wouldn't go Chelsea, and you definitely wouldn't go United. And obviously Spurs aren't even in the conversation.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. The one thing I would say about the money as well, Liverpool can afford it, but will they pay that kind of money? I know they broke records on Alisson and Van Dijk, and they spent a lot of money on Darwin. It'd just be interesting to see whether Liverpool would drop, because I think if you were to do it, I think it would have to be 150 to 200 million pound bid. Then you're probably looking at 300 grand a week in wages. I'm unsure whether Liverpool spend that amount of money on one player. Genuinely unsure whether they, and that's not a dig. I'm unsure that most clubs wouldn't spend that amount of money on one particular player. So yeah, it's an interesting one for me. Some super chats here. First one says Barca sacked Xavi and got Flick, wasn't popular. That's a great point.
Decision, though. Right
Great
decision
point you make there. Terry, we got positive press. Vavell is yes, Vavell should have been announced as the new Manchester United permanent, the director of recruitment is what his job title is, and he's taken a reduced wage from what he was paid as a consultant. So he's taking a pay cut, which is nice. Well done, you. Dom Ryan Maka Endo, 1 season with Klopp, same for Arnie Slot. Yeah, but Stephen, but you haven't changed your style of football. Your own manager has admitted this. He just said there's been a few adaptations, a new voice. That's what good clubs do. There's a transition period. You'll see the same when Pep leaves City. Anyone who thinks they're just going to have this massive drop-off is crazy. There'll be a very, very clean transition, in my opinion. And even if the first guy is not a good enough coach for whatever reason, they'll get another guy in they're not going to have this drop off and be away for years. It's just not going to happen. They're too well run overall. The stadium, this is from Enigma. He says the stadium fans will tell the board when to fire him. LB, why should Arsenal care what you or neutral say? Potts, Arteta 1 trophy, Poch has none.
Brilliant. Hey, he's better than Pochettino. Let's keep him. Yay.
Well, first of all, I'm just here to give my opinion in it. I don't care what the board do, and quite frankly, I'd like Arsenal to keep Arteta for as long as possible because he don't win anything. And comparing him to Poch is quite hilarious because he's a manager that I have said for many years is one of the most overrated managers I've ever seen in football. So gloating that he's got 1 trophy over someone who I consider is a fraud isn't doing much. But big up for the super chat.
This here says, banter aside, we should have done better this season, but Liverpool have only lost 1 game, so we needed to go invincible, not with this team.
No, we did not need to go invincible this season to win the league. This is not an elite level Liverpool side, and that's no disrespect because they've clearly been the best team in England. But I haven't looked at this Liverpool side once this season yet and gone, wow, they would have beaten Man City in the last 4 seasons or Arsenal in the last couple. I just don't think they would have. I don't think Liverpool have had to be amazing. And I think most of the Liverpool fans would probably accept that they haven't really had to get out of 2nd or 3rd gear for most of the games so far this season. So they've been quite clearly better with Salah's numbers of 41 in February, goals and assists. So I don't think we have to go invincible to win the league against this Liverpool side. I don't agree, but cheers for the super chat, bro.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could have just turned if 3 of your draws were wins.
Exactly.
That would put you 6 points closer, so there'd be a 5-point gap with the game in hand. And then you go to Anfield, so win the game in hand, go to Anfield and see what happens. But yeah, it's you could have still lost this amount of games. In fact, you could have lost 1 extra game and just turned 3 of those draws into wins, and you'd have more points with more losses. So look, and taking nothing away from Liverpool, they've been very good. Any of you, already done that super chat. Also, Dan, both these managers were. Already done that one too. There is no release clause in Palmer's contract, is what Ronan says here.
I don't know. LB, did you hear that? Or
that's what Chelsea fans told me, innit? So your fan base needs to get in order, innit? Because they're telling me that he does have a release clause.
Yeah, your own fan base is spreading fake news, Ronan, about your own club. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's really, really crazy. Gents, I want to thank you both, as ever, on Tuesdays for coming here and talking football, transfers, club situations, and a little bit more. I know we didn't touch much on City today, but be honest with you, LB, I don't really feel like there's much to say, if that makes sense. It's not a dig. It's just it'd be a bit of a repetition of previous things that have been said. There we go. Ben Jacobs says there's no release clause for Palmer. Well, fair enough. But LB didn't say there was. He just said Chelsea fans were saying it, and that's crazy.
Yeah,
so,
I've not got access to the guy's contract. Chelsea fans are telling me on Twitter that he has got a release clause. I don't know if he's got a release clause. I ain't seen his contract.
There we go. Boys, thank you. Everyone who's tuned in, everyone who's super chatted and hit the like button, a big thank you to you. This video is going to redirect you somewhere. I'm not too sure where. To Footy Judge Mo's channel. So go and support Judge Mo. We're back later tonight. My show with Mark's actually been postponed because we both forgot Chelsea were playing tonight. So but I'm live after the Chelsea game tonight. So make sure you're tuning in for the reaction. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye God bless, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.